Hello everyone, my name is Christian, welcome to my hobby blog. Today we are going to do a review of a Criterion Collection release that was recently back in 2018, 2019, I believe. They did a restoration of the incredible film by Masaki Kobayashi called Kwaidan. This is the Blu-ray release of it. This is pretty similar, I've heard, to the Eureka release, which is a Region B company. Personally, I love the design of the cover. I wish there was a bit more writings in this, because right now there's only really this short essay that we get that kind of discuss the many different aspects of the filming, whether it's the music, the adaptation that they got from the main writer that Kobayashi drew the stories from. And of course, there's the disc. It's a pretty nice packaging, great artwork, but it is a bit lacking in terms of the writings, at least. In terms of the special features, they are really incredible. I really like the interview with the director, and also talking to the assistant director, or at least the fourth assistant director, as he calls himself. And I'll go into more details on that, but if you don't know who Masaki Kobayashi is, he made probably one of my favorite movies of all time, the 9.5 hour The Human Condition, which I've reviewed on this channel. Go watch it if you're interested. He made this in 1959, 1961, and then immediately after, he made probably the best stepping stone to this director, which is Harakiri, which is 1962. So both of these films here, Human Condition and Harakiri, star the amazing actor Tatsuya Nakadai, and he has a brief role in this film, because if you don't know, Kwaidan is like an anthology horror film, and as the writer of the essay says on here, it's a really hard movie to classify or categorize, and so we're just going to call it an anthology horror film for now. But it is 4 different parts. The first part is called The Black Hair, which is all about a samurai who leaves his home away from his wife to go marry into an even better family with higher class stature, or status at least. And then he regrets it and moves back, and creepy things go on. Story 2, or part 2 of the anthology, is The Woman of the Snow, which is all about two refugees, or people from a war. They kind of pack into this hut that's by a lake, and they encounter a woman who is pale as snow and who gives like a weird breath thing to Tatsuya Nakadai's friend. This is the second watch that I had, and this time the slower parts really seemed a lot slower. Maybe it's because we've been having a lot of snow, so it's been really lazy around here, and I've been napping off and on just throughout the days. I was supposed to have work today. We didn't have any work because it's been just a snowstorm this entire weekend since Sunday, and it's now almost Wednesday now. It's Tuesday night as I'm recording this. So maybe I need to not watch it on a day like this, but I still really love this movie. Part 3, which is called Horichi the Earless, is just absolutely masterful. That's still my favorite section of the movie. I really enjoyed the previous 2 stories and also the 4th story, but I really think that story 4, by the way, is called In a Cup of Tea, which is about a shogunate, or at least a lord, who sees a ghost in his teacup before he's about to drink, and he accidentally drinks it, and the soul kind of gets into him and starts to kind of possess him and pester him, and slowly is driven to insanity. But the thing I was going to say is that I wish story 3, Horichi the Earless, was the last story, because I think that one has the biggest punch in terms of the emotional heights and how it ends, because we have Takashi Shimura, the amazing Takashi Shimura, and he's one of the best actors ever. He's in most of Akira Kurosawa's movies, such as Seven Samurai, Redbeard, I believe he's in. He's also in the original Godzilla movie, which people always forget. But that whole story is about a biwa player. It's like one of those 4-stringed guitars that you use a really big pick for. It's like that big, and you strum with that. He's also blind, so he gets escorted by a lord or whatever that we know is actually a spirit from the dead, and the spirit leads him to the graveyard where all these warriors died from this really massive battle, and the queen is there, the king, the lords, there are retainers there, there's a lot of people there, and the princess is also there, the daughter of the queen, who the queen sacrificed herself and her daughter in order to not die horribly by her enemies. I think that's how it goes. And this blind priest, he plays the biwa, and he can play the whole, I guess, epic tale. It's one of those kind of songs where it can go for hours and hours and hours with all its different symphonies and lyrical patterns and all this. And we get a couple glances into the song because we know that this character is staying up all night playing for these spirits. And everyone's kind of like, where's he going? Like, we can't find him. And I really love the visuals in this section. One thing that the director kind of talked about, Masaki Kobayashi, is that when he was planning the movie around, he would try and develop color palettes or color schemes for each individual part, for all 4 parts, because this was his first color movie that he made. And so he was really mindful that he was going to really have to utilize color very well, or people were going to ask him, like, why didn't you just stay with black and white as you had for all your other movies? And so he would go to different bookstores and buy books on great artists and just thumb through all their artwork and cut out any that he wanted to use as inspiration for the costume designer or for the color palette, for the costuming. And it was really interesting to watch the supplements for this because we get a lot of info about everything being a choice. One of the big things is that this entire movie is not shot on location. It's shot in an airplane hangar, and so they had this very large kind of curtain rod going all the way across on the perimeter of the place where they could hang up canvas for the matte paintings. And so they would have it all the way around except for one wall where they would use that for, so it's not, covering up all the walls at once and they can't get out. But what they would do is that they would, whenever they were working on a different scene, they would just pull the canvas around on this little dolly track. And so what they would do is that they would just shoot different scenes at once and send in the dailies when they needed to. And so I'm going to move on because I lost my train of thought. But at one point of the movie, when they were doing the Hoichi the Eyeless or the Earless story, they used up all the money they had. And the director had said that this was the most expensive movie ever made in Japan. And so he called a producer that he knew he had money and was like, hey, we need 10 more million yen. And the director and the producer was like, I'm going to give this to you, but you're going to regret it so much if I didn't give you 50 million. And so he gave him 50 million. Ended up he did need that many, and they were able to finish the movie. And one thing that I was really shocked by when I was reading, or at least watching the behind the scenes discussions that the assistant director was having on this release, is that when they were submitting the movie to the Cannes Film Festival, they have a weird rule where it's not allowed to be over 2 hours long in order to be considered for awards. And so he edited out 20 minutes of it, sent it, and that was kind of considered the Cannes cut of the movie, or at least the foreign markets one, because they denied that 2 hours and 40 minutes cut of the movie. And so he just took out the entirety of part 2, The Woman of the Snow, which is one of the best ones. It's the top 2 in my opinion, along with Hoichi the Earless. But so they cut that out and they sent it in, and not many people were wowed by it. I mean, it was really good still, but Masaki Kobayashi said that between him sending that and doing the 20-minute less cut of the movie that he did originally that was denied by the Cannes Film Festival, that he started to do a new sound mixing of the movie. And so he did the new sound mixing with the composer, because the composer wasn't happy with the soundtrack either. And so they released that, they screened it, it went really well, but it still wasn't the full 183-minute cut, so just above 3 hours long. And so after the 160-minute cut made its rounds, won awards, did really well, they kind of forgot about it, and the studio Toho had taken the 183-minute version of the movie, the cut of the movie. It just kind of put it away in a warehouse and just kind of forgot about it. And so apparently in like the 80s, like the late 80s, early 90s, so like 30 years after they made this movie, Masaki Kobayashi at the time had found out that he was sick and that he was going to die within, the next year. He did end up dying a year later. And he started looking for this 162-minute cut. That way they could restore it. And so he was looking for it, and he was talking to the assistant director. That was the 4th one. And he was like, well, I have some friends in the Toho studio. I'm going to go call them and see what we can get. And they found the original camera negative for the 162-minute print of the movie. And also the soundtrack release, the 183-minute soundtrack. So all they needed to do was find the actual camera negative and then combine those in order to make the perfect restoration as the assistant director calls it. And so they found the 162-minute cut. They restored it as best as they could. And then they showed a screening and invited the director, who was basically on his deathbed at this point, to come see it. And he watched it and he was like, oh my gosh, you rescued it from antiquity or whatever. And he shortly died later. So he was never able to actually see the full version. But apparently 2 years after he died, the assistant director was still looking for the original cut, and then they found it. And so what they did is that they took the original cut and they had a few frames missing from it, and so they used the canned cut that they originally sent, the 2-hour cut, and they filled in whatever frames they were missing, and then put in the original soundtrack. So this is as perfect of a restoration that we have for this movie. They do say this is a new 2K digital restoration of the original cut. And so I believe that there was a DVD copy of this movie from Criterion way back in the day. And so it seems like they did a whole new digital restoration. So they must still have the film print somewhere, because this is a new 2K restoration and it looks absolutely incredible. I really like this movie. I loved it the first time I watched it, and since then I have delved more into Harakiri and finally watched Human Condition, and I love Human Condition. I think it's one of the top 5 movies of all time. There are various movies that hit you so hard after watching this. And with Kwaidan, and this kind of goes back to the issue I was saying with how they don't really end it on a big note. They end it with kind of a meta segment after part 4 where they're like, oh, we don't know how the last part ended because we couldn't figure it out. You gotta, fill in your imagination. And then we get like kind of a jump scare, kind of a scary moment, and the movie ends. And I'm like, okay, I see what they're doing there. I think they should have switched out story 4 and story 3's placement and have the big epic musical tragedy of this battle be the final part. And it would be interesting to see how much that affects the movie, because the black hair is really good. I would rate that like number 3. My number 4 is I should probably go in order from least favorite to favorite, but my least favorite is In a Cup of Tea, which is part 4. It's just okay. I like it a lot, but I think after Hoichi and the Earless, it just does not continue that energy that part 3 has. My third favorite, of course, is the black hair, which I've already mentioned as my number 3. It's really good. It's pretty great in terms of theme. The essay writer kind of made a point that the first 3 parts of this anthology are all about breaking promises. And so in the first one, in the black hair, our main character breaks his promise to live faithfully and do all that. The Woman of the Snow, Tatsuya Nakadai makes a promise that he will never tell anyone about seeing the Snow Woman, and he breaks that promise. And so conflicts arise from there. And then Hoichi the Earless, he promises to finish the ballad for the soldiers and the queen and her daughter and all this stuff. And his priest people drag him away, thus making him not finish, and he gets severely cursed for it. So all these different themes are working together really well between all of them. This movie itself is very much a symphony or a ballad in the way that Hoichi is performing. So The Woman of the Snow is my number 2, because I really like what's going on there. Tatsuya Nakadai's acting is really good. Everything he does is great. I mean, any movie that I've seen him in, whether it's Yoshinbo, Seven Samurai, Human Condition, Harakiri, Kwaidan, all of them, he's always just 10 out of 10. He's a great actor. And of course, my number one is Horichi the Earless. That one is just phenomenal. I love the music in it. I love the acting. Takashi Shimura shows up and is like the leader of this church, and he's amazing. I really like what he does in the movie. But I would recommend doing some comparisons between this release and Eureka's. This is the Blu-ray Criterion, as I've already said. But these movies, or this movie is based off of like a folk tale, like a Japanese folk tale that someone named Lafcadio Heian, I believe that's how you say it. He's someone who was around in the late 1800s all the way into 1904, I believe is when he died. And what Masaki Kobayashi did to make this movie is to take 5 of the tales that were kind of written about from those folk tales, and he adapted them. So kind of word for word. There was a supplement all about the kind of the comparisons between the two, but I wasn't really interested in watching that. So kind of gives y'all something to look forward to in terms of what you think. So I think that's all I have. I don't really have much else to say. I really like this movie. It's not my favorite, but it's really well done. And the restoration looks just awesome. I really liked looking at this movie on Blu-ray and just kind of getting lost in the visuals. So thank you all for watching.